Tonight on the Daily Wrap, Pope Francis spoke before Congress this morning. Pennsylvania Congressman Mike Kelly was there, and we'll talk to him about that historic speech. Donald Trump and Fox still at odds, but Mr. Trump may have a new war in his hands, this time with a fellow presidential candidate. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the Daily Wrap, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, along with Rick Unger. Second straight day for confession for you. Apparently they had to stretch it out over 48 hours.
You know, he was supposed to go home today, and then there was me, so yeah.
The litany.
He had to stay a few extra days.
What do you think of day 2 of the Pope visit? It's huge.
I'm enjoying it immensely. I watched it all this morning. You know I like this man. And I just think it's great that he's around. I hope that the media will not overly politicize it. It's not necessary. Let's just enjoy the fact that he's here, and it's exciting, people.
All right. Well, to his right, she's a Philly attorney and America's pundit. Heather Hansen is back once again. And finally, to her right, he's the editor of thewisdomdaily.com and a Washington Post contributor, Brad Hirschfield, here once again. Okay, everybody, let's get right to the Daily Download. And today in Washington, Pope Francis gave a well-received speech to members of Congress that even brought Speaker of the House John Boehner to tears for the 18th time this month. Before we get to Congressman Mike Kelly, we witnessed the event firsthand. He did anyway. Let's look back on what the Pope said as he took a page from President Obama's prayer breakfast speech, saying no religion is immune from extremism that results in violence.
Our world is increasingly a place of violent conflict, hatred, and brutal atrocities, committed even in the name of God and of religion. We know that no religion is immune from forms of individual delusion or ideological extremism.
That's pretty good English. Okay, the Pope also spoke out about climate change as well, an issue that has bothered many conservatives.
We need a conversation which includes everyone, since the environmental challenge we are undergoing and its human roots concern and affect us all. I'm convinced that we can make a difference. I'm sure.
And in a move that I'm sure made traditional Catholics happy, the Pope spoke out about the sanctity of life.
The Golden Rule also reminds us of our responsibility to protect and defend human life at every stage of its development.
Okay, so huge applause there by Congress. Boehner, we didn't get crying on there. It looked like he dried up at that point.
Give him a break. Even I'm giving him a break.
You're giving him a break.
It's not. This is not political. I'm sure for John Boehner, it was a very emotional moment. He is I know, a believing Catholic. He's tried for years to get a pope to come.
Yes.
And you know what? What the heck?
Good for you, Rick. You know? He's getting above all the partisan bickering and whatnot.
This is spiritual. This is not partisan. And, you know, that's how I feel about what he had to say today. There were some things I agree with him on. There were some things I may not agree with him on. So what? You know, people make a mistake here. Yes, he is technically the leader of a country, but we don't turn to him for his power as a leader of a country. He's turned to for his spiritual guidance, and you don't have to agree with everything he says. It doesn't diminish the importance of his role in the world, and nor should it.
Is that the way our society is built now, particularly around media, that we have to take every topic? I remember the World Cup was on, was it last year? And it came down to a blue-red issue, where liberals were saying they like soccer, and then conservatives were saying, well, you're wimps because you like soccer and there's no contact. Like, even soccer wasn't sacred. So even here, the Pope visits, and all I hear all day was some of the type of analysis you hear from Rick, and then the other side of it is, well, you know, should religious leaders be getting this political?
He's not supposed to be a tiebreaker, you know, as between the two sides. It's interesting, you watch that and you see Joe Biden, who is a Democrat and a very, very strong Catholic, and you see Boehner, who's also a very strong Catholic and yet a Republican. They both have their strong beliefs, and there's going to be some things the Pope says that they agree with and some that they don't agree with. And he's not meant to break political ties. He is meant to be a spiritual being.
I'm about to slip into what I was just kind of railing against, which was, you said Biden was a strong Catholic, but he's pro-choice. So can he be a strong Catholic? And
apparently, in his mind, he can.
But that's the whole point. What the Pope is pointing to is that we have to get rid of the easy polarizations that are dividing our society. And that has been the motif he keeps returning to, and what makes him a great spiritual leader.
And I would just quickly caution that just because somebody is pro-choice does not mean they're pro-abortion. Right. So the vice president could be very strongly against abortion, but doesn't feel that he can impose it on somebody else.
Okay, I'm pro-adoption. No one says that very often. There's not enough babies to adopt in this country. A topic for another time, because we're bringing on Pennsylvania Congressman Mike Kelly, who joins us from Washington as promised. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Good to be with you. Rick, how you doing, buddy?
How are you, pal? Good to have you.
I'm good.
You guys, bowling partners practically. It's a shout out before you even come on. All right, so
let me just say quickly, Mike Kelly and I disagree politically on what time it is. But I consistently say he is one of my favorite members of Congress because he's a congressman for all the right reasons, and he's a good man.
And he's always buying, right?
And he still hasn't given me a discount on a new car, but I let it go.
All right. You have to own a car first. Anyway, some people see Pope Francis, as we were talking about before, a little divisive, especially over comments regarding global warming. What is your view on the Pope, not only as a Catholic, but also as a conservative legislator?
Well, first of all, the Pope didn't mention global warming. He mentioned the environment. I think the one thing that we all missed today, or at least the people I've heard so far, the Pope's message was really that I came here for the world meeting of the families. That's what brought him to the United States. And so he said, well, I'm here. I'm going to do these other things. So he was in Washington. He's going to go to New York. He's on his way to New York, and he'll be in Philadelphia. And I think really what we try to parse and try to figure out is this a liberal pope? Is this a radical person who doesn't believe one thing or another? No, I think this is a pope that delivered a very clear message today to anybody who was willing to open their mind and listen with a very thirsty ear. This was something that was really very, for me, being a Catholic, being in the presence of the Holy Father, and having him address us as a group, I thought was an incredible opportunity. I really feel sorry for the folks that decided not to be there, or who sat there and said, this is not a pope I want to listen to. I think that's the problem in life in general. I don't think, and Rick just said something that's very clear, every time I sit down with Rick, I want to hear what he has to say, and he wants to hear what I have to say. It's a mutual respect we have for our thought process, and say we can come together on so many things. No, I thought the Pope today was very clear. He was very clear on the family. He was very clear on life. He was very clear on all those issues that conservatives say, well, that's exactly what I'm talking about, but I don't like maybe a way he went about it. I can't tell you that sitting there and listening to the Holy Father and being there yesterday morning at the White House and then being at Mass yesterday afternoon, that I came away with anything other than a feeling that there was a tremendous amount of calmness that descended on this city yesterday. His very presence here, there were no scowls, there were smiles, there was nobody pushing and shoving. Even though there were great throngs of people, they weren't angry, they weren't mad, there wasn't a lot of angst. There was a calmness and a serenity that descended upon the city and has settled here now. And I am so happy that we had the opportunity, and I'm saying as a person now, and as a legislator, that's one thing. I wanted to hear what the Pope had to say. We all have a tremendous responsibility to our fellow man. This is the part of humanity that I think that sometimes gets lost in the political morass that's out there. His message was great. His message was spot on. His message to me was not one of somebody who's a liberal or somebody who's a conservative, but somebody who's a very holy person and has a great respect for life. And I really enjoyed being able to sit there and soak that in. To me, it was a wonderful spending of time the last couple of days.
Mike, you're such a politician. You ran out all the time. The clock's gone.
But
you're so going to heaven, Mike. I'll say that. If you weren't before that, you are now.
now.
So anyway, thanks for coming on tonight. Are we holding them, guys, until the next break? Do you want to have some more questions for Mike? Sure. All right.
Listen,
Stick around, Mike. We're going to talk to you a little bit more, okay?
I really would. And Rick and I could probably talk for hours. I know not a lot of people want to buy into that, but I'd love to sit and talk for a little bit longer. I got to tell you guys, this was transformational.
Stick around, Mike. I got to go.
We got to
be back in a second. Break. Stick around. And welcome back to the show. We're continuing our conversation about the Pope's address to Congress this morning, where not only did the Pope call for protecting life, he also brought up abolishing the death penalty.
This conviction has led me from the beginning of my ministry to advocate at different levels the global abolition of the death penalty. I am convinced that this way is the best, since every life is sacred. Every human person is endowed with unalienable dignity, and society can only benefit from the rehabilitation of those convicted of crimes.
His Holiness went on to say he supports a renewed push by American bishops to call for the end of the death penalty, an interesting issue, as many on the left are pro-choice and anti-death penalty, while most on the right have an opposite view. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia waded into the death penalty debate during a college speech, saying he, quote, wouldn't be surprised if the court ruled it unconstitutional, despite his belief that the Constitution allows for it with the establishment of protections like a fair trial. Okay, let's bring back Mike Kelly once again, the congressman from Pennsylvania. And I know Rick is like a giddy schoolchild right now wanting to talk to you. Like
yes, that's it. I just want him to buy lunch. Hey, Mike, you know, we had an interesting conversation during the break where you were pointing out just how peaceful Washington, D.C. is today. And I think that's a fascinating comment. You know, would you agree that when it comes to somebody like the Pope, somebody of that stature and spiritual stature, that we can avoid the politics? There's so many liberals who always want to pile on the Pope because he sees something differently. Now there's some conservatives. Can't we just skip the politics and say that this is a spiritual man? We don't have to judge his politics.
Well, let's hope we go that way. But in this town, it's always politics above policy. You know that, so. Hard to avoid that in Washington.
We should be able to with him.
Congressman Brad Hirschfield, I want to kind of continue the question along those lines about the problems we have in Washington. I agree with you. I think His Holiness did something quite remarkable. He came to a town that's defined by polarization, and he helped people rise above it. He did it, it seems to me, with three things. He really believes in the dignity of all people, even when they disagree with him. He has genuine curiosity about the views he doesn't agree with. And he has real humility about the views he does, even as he is deeply committed to his own tradition and its conclusions. What do you think we can do to sustain that feeling you described before the break and that approach here in Washington, even after the Holy Father returns home?
Well, I think that the message that we heard today is one that you can hear day after day after day and not get bored with or turn away from. And a lot of, in life, as everything else, repetition is the key to it. Whether it's parenting or teaching or coaching, it's repetition. So I think that you read that over and over again, you hear the Pope's message, and you see how that does affect you, and especially in your role here in Washington, D.C. as a legislator, or more importantly, as a representative of the people back home that sent you. I think it's easy if you can keep your mind clear from that and not get yourself so down one road that you can't possibly come back and say, you know, I had a different kind of view of it now after I looked farther into it. Too many people say, oh, that's flip-flopping. I've always thought that there's an evolution that takes place in all of us. I know that where I am today is a lot different than when I started off, and that's just because of interaction and being around people.
Now, Congressman, are you going to follow him up 95 on the Excella to your home state of Pennsylvania and see the Pope this Sunday in Philadelphia as well?
No, I think that's going to be too strenuous. I don't know how they're going to handle the logistics of it up there. I would just say that the last 2 days that I spent here, these 48 hours, have been critical, and critical not just to myself, but to almost every single person I've talked to was lifted by the Pope's remarks. And I don't say that in any way to be cute or playing to something. I'm talking about from our position as human beings. If we don't soon wake up to where we are, and more importantly, and Rick and I talk about this all the time, the potential for this country, for this nation, is almost limitless, but it's going to take strong leadership and always following that that compass that points true north. If you can do that, your chances of actually arriving at the destination you wanted to are a lot better.
Well, you're a genuine guy, Mike. No one here thinks you're playing to any kind of crowd, so we certainly appreciate you joining us. And hopefully the Pope, when he does get to Philadelphia, can bless the Eagles, because things are going horribly right now.
They may actually need more than the Pope's blessing. It's that bad.
That's true. You might need God himself to come down and say, my God, and you scored 3 points against the Cowboys.
See you soon, buddy.
Okay, Rick, thanks so much. Hey, God bless everybody. Thanks for what you're doing. It's critical.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate it.
A great guy.
He's tremendous, and here you are, a Democrat, here he is a Republican, and you showed that the two sides can get along over alcohol.
People don't, yeah, definitely we can do that. People don't understand this. I don't care what your policies are as long as you've thought them through and your intentions are right. Mike has good intentions. He wants what's best for the country. We may not agree on every solution, but I know where his heart and his head are at.
Okay, Catholic schoolgirl, chime in.
Don't you have to be open to change? I mean, I think that's one of the things that you mentioned that you saw today, and that's one of the things that Mike also mentioned, that he's not going to be accused of flip-flopping just because he's willing to evolve.
And that evolution or change or growth or whatever you want to call it has to be practiced by everyone. It's very easy to think the opposition needs to change. That's just narcissism. How come they ain't more like us? Right. The openness to change is measured not by how much the other side changes, is how much change we ourselves are open to, with His Holiness's caveat that it remain rooted in your tradition and you have integrity. But the measure of integrity is not how little you'll change, it's how much you can change without losing who you are.
Wow, you should think about becoming a rabbi. That was great the way you delivered that. It was so uplifting. Interesting. Anyway, as the Pope's historic visit to the United States continues to dominate the headlines, more and more Americans are asking, who is Pope Francis? Well, as always, Newsmax, we got you covered. Learn more about Pope Francis and his humble rise to the Vatican in the book, Francis, A Pope for Our Time. Get this special offer right now at newsmax.com/pope or call 1-800-203-7047. Coming up, more on the Pope's historic address. That's later in the show, but up next we have the latest between Donald Trump, Fox News, and the war that will never end.
Look, Trump obviously attacks everyone, but she's become a much bigger target, and I think part of what's going on here is that last debate. Let's be honest. Carly cut his balls off with the precision of a surgeon, and he knows it. He knows it. He's insulted and bullied his way to the top of the polls. No one was able to best him ever except for this tough lady on that stage, and it must kill him. He must be simmering about it to this night.
Welcome back to the Daily Wrap. That was Rich Lowry, editor of the Conservative National Review, weighing in on how Carly Fiorina clipped Donald Trump's performance during last week's GOP debate. Turns out that Trump is apparently a bit of a prude when it comes to provocative language on TV, at least when it doesn't work in his favor. Now, to add insult to injury, Lowry's remarks attacking Trump's manhood were made on the Donald's television pet peeve of record, The Kelly Files, starring the anti-Trump Megyn Kelly. Here's what Trump had to say about it all.
Fox does not treat me fairly. Megyn Kelly, I mean, you had this loser on last night, this guy Lowry. I never even heard of him. He was so out of control. He lost control of himself. It was actually sad. He lost control of himself last night with what he said. And I guess you got to take a guy like that off the air.
But you're at war with Rich Lowry, who is the editor of National Review, which is really sort of the gold standard of conservative magazines.
I don't think anybody reads it, Joe. I think it has no power whatsoever. I'll be honest. I think it has no power whatsoever. And he's not a respected guy.
I read it,
you're the only one.
Well, he's not the only one, and Rich Lowry is very much a respected guy, but, you know, who knew that Donald was so sensitive? Are any of you guys buying Trump's distress over whatever Rich Lowry had to say? We'll start with you, Joe, because I know you've got a pretty strong point of view on this.
Yeah. Donald Trump has every right to say that he is now being treated unfairly by Fox News. Since the debate...
Did he before?
Did he before?
Yeah.
Fox treated him very fairly, I thought. Particularly Kelly, who seemed to go out of her way to treat him fairly. And then on that very day, the network puts out a statement saying that Donald Trump engages in personal attacks against our hosts and anchors. It's become stale, it's immature, a whole panel called him childish, and what happens 5 hours later? Rich Lowry goes on that network and makes that statement, which you could have said in 1,000 other different ways that wouldn't have been so provocative. If you called me a prude, I don't think I'm a prude, all right? I have standards, though, and news organizations, including this one, by the way, and I had a disagreement with our executive producer. We shouldn't have played that on the air. We could, very easily, Rich Lowry could have said, Carly Fiorina emasculated Donald Trump with the precision of a surgeon, and then it has the same effect without the effect. Exactly. That's cunning humor.
Yeah, I just think we've gone from the sublime to the ridiculous. Last 2 blocks we've talked about the Pope and coming together and how we can all do that, and then every time that we talk about Trump, it's the same. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was inappropriate. It was inappropriate for the audience. It was inappropriate for the cable news channel. It may have been appropriate for a rated R movie, but I don't think it was necessary, and I think that it doesn't move the ball forward.
Brad, I think you're right there with him.
Yeah, I think it's time to climb out of the sewer and up to the gutter. I mean, it's ridiculous. He shouldn't have said it. He's an employee of Fox, and actually Megyn Kelly, who has behaved with remarkable dignity through this, when she kind of covered her eyes and laughed and, what did you say? She failed at that moment. At that moment, she actually pandered to this whole problem and played to Trump. You don't trump Trump with those kind of bad behaviors.
You know,
and that's what they did.
What was interesting to me is Rich Lowry is a very soft-spoken, conservative kind of guy. He's not a bomb thrower as a rule. So I thought that was a bit strange.
He's a rehearsed one.
There you go. It was rehearsed.
Yes,
You're right.
He said it on a podcast just a couple of days before, and you could tell he was pulling a Stuart Smiley beforehand, saying in the mirror over and over again, just to make sure he had the pitch and timing down. And look, I don't mean to call out Newsmax because like we're some sort of outlier. Every single news organization was playing that clip over and over today, so we're no different than anybody else. I'm just saying, like you said, let's get out of the gutter and into the sewer.
So despite the fact that Fox News continues to distress Mr. Trump, there are once again signs that peace may be breaking out between Fox and Trump as the world took a collective breath today when the following statement was released by Fox News saying they're ready to sit down and talk next week. Now, I'm not going to read the whole statement. You can basically see it on your own. You know, speaking for myself, I don't know if I can wait until next week to find out how this soap opera is going to come to an end. Or is it possible I could be completely beyond caring at this point? Panel, why are we and the rest of the media world allowing ourselves to be caught up in this low-budget, cheap, low-quality soap opera? Why does anybody care about this? Quickly, guys, Joe?
I'm not sure people care about it so much this time because the sequel never does as well as the original, and I think this has been overplayed at this point. If it happens again, then we certainly, absolutely don't care.
It has happened again, and we should already not care, and I'm gonna criticize us and the rest of the media. Enough of this.
I completely agree. Why do we do it? It is a soap opera. It's the right words, like watching the Kardashians, but you feel good about yourself because it's politics.
Very stupid. All right, so let us know who your pick for the 2016 nomination is by going to NewsmaxPolls.com and casting your vote. Coming up next, you know about his war with Fox News, but Donald Trump has a new war going on. We'll tell you with who in a moment. A new Fox poll out today shows that GOP frontrunner Donald Trump remains at the top of the polls with 26% support from GOP primary voters. But in addition to charging Carly Fiorina, who's coming up in the polls, Trump now has some new competition with Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who has moved up 4 spots and into 3rd place. According to the poll, Ben Carson is also in 2nd place with 18%, and Carly Fiorina is now tied with Marco Rubio with 9% in that 3rd spot. So, now that Marco Rubio has moved from 9th place to 3rd, pretty good leap, it should come as no surprise that he now finds himself, what? In a war with Donald Trump. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? The first punch, so to speak, was thrown by Donald Trump after Rubio's polling numbers started to rise after last week's CNN debate. In his typical style, Trump took to the Twitter to criticize Senator Rubio's voting record, which according to Trump is apparently, wait for it, the worst record in Senate history. Then, while speaking in South Carolina, Trump told the crowd that Rubio is overly ambitious, too young, and has no money. But Rubio got his chance to fire back while appearing on Fox News show's Special Report with Bret Baier. Here's what he had to say.
So is Donald Trump qualified to be president of the United States?
Well, as I said, I think that the most important thing a president will ever do is provide for the national security of our country. And I think up to now he hasn't really answered serious questions about national security. And until he does, there should be concerns, not just about him, but about any candidate that's not able to speak in detail, with clarity, and with seriousness about the national security threats that we face.
Now, of course, Mr. Trump couldn't allow it to end there, so here he is this morning on CNN's New Day.
So what would you do about Marco Rubio? He's got the worst voting record in the United States Senate. He's never there, meaning he doesn't work or he's too lazy to go back and vote. Look, Marco Rubio sits behind a desk sometimes, and he reads stuff. He's in, committees, so that's all he does. I create jobs all day long. If Marco Rubio's good, how come we're doing so badly? He's a sitting U.S. senator.
He's on the Foreign Relations
Committee.
Committee.
About it. I'm not in government. He is in government.
But
Marco Rubio, he's like a kid. He shouldn't even be running in this race as far as I'm concerned. He's a kid.
Heather, it's even hard for me to ask the question. It's so insane. Is this now the new tactic for campaigning for president in America, or is this man just taken this so far? He can't disagree with Marco Rubio's record. I suppose that's because he doesn't know his record. So he just calls it the worst record ever.
Well, I mean, there's some truth to that as far as Rubio has not shown up for the most of the votes this year, and he's much higher in his numbers than anyone else's. But he can't argue the policies. And especially when it comes to foreign policy, Marco Rubio at the debates put everyone away, I think. And he was smart to focus on that. And then Donald Trump just comes back. He's the wizard behind the curtain, and he'll just come back with more insults and move on.
And Joe, he never goes. Look, if I were going to criticize Marco Rubio, I would be over the fact that he likes to identify as being over there well on the right, but when you listen to him talk, he's more center right than he is far right. That would be a criticism I might level at him, but not Trump. He's got to go for the personal. What do you think?
I think you asked the question before. Is this the new tactic that all presidential candidates will have in terms of going after people? And the answer is no, because there's only one person that can pull this off.
He's the only one.
Donald Trump. When others try it, it's going to come across as they're trying to be like Trump, right? As for your point about Rubio being center right, it's because of age. Marco Rubio is my age.
Right.
He's literally only a couple of months younger than I am. And people my age, born after 1970, tend to be conservative, at least, in my world. You're conservative in terms of finances, in terms of military, but in terms of social issues, we're much more moderate.
Brad, look, let me ask it this way. It's no secret that I am not the biggest Trump supporter in the country. So let's leave me out of it and ask it this way. At some point, do Trump supporters look at this and go, okay, this was interesting at the beginning. He seemed to be telling the truth, telling it like it is, whatever. But now all he does is level personal insults. How can people keep going for that?
You heard what he said in that last clip. I'm not a politician. Rubio's a politician. The only way that Trump goes down on this issue is if Fiorina or Carson rise. He is playing to a populist piece of the party that is exhausted by politicians. They feel betrayed. I'm not defending that emotion. They feel betrayed. And to Joe's point, the reason Rubio is rising is exactly what you said, because he actually is a principled conservative, but not dogmatic in the way of an earlier generation. And that is why he is rising among all the professional politicians.
Heather, has he peaked? I mean, we're now seeing the numbers go down.
Yes.
Are we going to see it go back up?
Yes, I know our audience will say no, and I think there are some people that will stand behind him even past the primary, but I think that he has.
Yeah.
I've heard about a pie that exists. 1/3 will always support Trump.
Always
they're loyal.
be there.
1/3 in the middle, they're not quite sure. 1/3 will never. To get that 1/3 in the middle, I don't see how he gets too many from there.
I'm going to be so fascinated to see next week's polls to see if he bounces back up.
Probably.
So, as we've been pointing out, Donald Trump is indeed still at the top of the polls, but is he your choice for the 2016 nomination, or is there someone else who's getting your attention? Let us know. Go to newsmaxpolls.com and cast your vote. Coming up next, it's that time. We're going to read a few viewer comments. Stay with us.
And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Let's read some of your viewer comments. Last night, we asked you to share your thoughts on the war between Donald Trump and Fox News, and here's what you had to say. ACA says, is that really your initials? Come on, Affordable Care Act. I don't believe Donald Trump has peaked, quote, not by a long shot. He will keep picking up supporters because he is the real deal, the art of the deal, as it were. The voters on both sides of the aisle are tired of fakers and posers. I heard Donnie Deutsch today on Morning Joe, and he was saying that from the Democratic Jewish communities down in Florida, that the people he speaks to, that they're all Trump supporters. That he does go across party lines to a certain extent. It's kind of more of an age thing than anything else. Like, I want somebody who's real.
Well, Lenny says, I think Fox is in cahoots with Karl Rove and Reince Priebus to destroy Trump, Cruz, and every other candidate not named Jeb Bush. He's their boy, even if they have to carry him to the finish line in a wheelbarrow. One reason I now watch Newsmax instead of Fox, aside from the fact that we love that you watch Newsmax now, a lot of people are saying precisely what he's saying.
That Roger Ailes has a candidate.
That it's about supporting Bush.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing in a lot of places.
That's very interesting. I guess that's why Karl Rove is on the payroll. Who knows? All right. Richard says, I'm with Trump no matter what. Sensing a theme here. If he doesn't win the nomination, I will not vote for the Republican nominee. I'm listening to Rush Limbaugh a couple days ago, and this caller comes in. She goes, if it's not Trump or Carson or Cruz is seen as an outsider even though he's a senator, then I'm not voting. And I keep hearing that over and over again.
I was hoping that commenter was going to vote for the Democratic candidate.
Say hi to President Biden.
Because what I always say is, if you're going to complain, I'm not going to use the real word I use, then you got to vote. You do. Lou says, longtime Fox fan, but will no longer be watching. I think American people are tired of politicians and the media. Fox is no longer fair and balanced. They have sold out. Please don't get tired of the media. We have mouths to feed here, Yeah,
wow. We can ask for a raise right about now because all these viewers are coming to us.
Well, now we got to keep them.
That's easy.
Now we got to keep them.
Right? It's too bad you're not in this studio right now because the Jakar cologne he's wearing, trust me, you'll keep him around. Anyway, Carol says, how did I get there? Fox News owner Rupert Murdoch is in the bag for Jeb Bush. There you go, right? For 2016. He hates Donald Trump. Hates a strong word. Little wonder Fox is going down. I, for one, will cancel my Fox News channel. You can't do that in bundling, but okay. And stay with Newsmax TV. Fox is a loser and a whiner. Welcome. Wow. Thank you. Just good luck canceling the Fox, but not everything else. That bundle thing is a horrible, horrible cable.
And Annie says, I think Fox News has decided they are best qualified to pick the GOP candidate, and they don't want Mr. Trump. Their despicable behavior is why I was watching Newsmax tonight.
Wow. We didn't get one email in support of Fox, according to our EP.
Which does not hurt our feelings, folks. You should know that.
Let's bring in Heather Hansen. Who tends to be on Fox from time to time.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on this? Do you think Fox is being heard? Because the ratings I look at, actually they're not. It just seems like there's enough love to go around. But B, do you think that they actually have it in for Donald Trump and they want Jeb Bush?
Because I think their ratings have actually gone up. I know Megyn Kelly's ratings have gone up. I think that they are getting a new audience. And I think, again, I've said this before, I think the people at Fox are brilliant when it comes to this, and they are purposefully looking to expand their audience. And I don't think that they purposefully tilt anything. The people there are being honest. I think that people are honestly saying what they feel, and I don't think that it's manipulated in any way.
I actually agree with you, believe it or not. I don't think that they're trying to in some way tilt this towards Jeb Bush or anybody else, because I don't think that they've mistreated Donald Trump despite his saying so.
Especially on Fox and Friends.
Well, maybe last
night. On Fox and Friends, they have handled him with kid gloves, and he has not said, except for Fox and Friends. He just puts all of Fox in one big bucket.
All right, so we also asked you if the Iran deal will be an important issue throughout the election cycle. John says the Iran deal should be a focus for the 2016 election. It is strong for the GOP, but it probably will be buried by social matters, immigration, and abortion, things that hurt the GOP. Smart comment. I would include in that, though, the economy, which is what people at the end of the day really vote on.
And continuing on that thought, Holly says the deal should be part of the election debate, but CNN is too busy with stupid personal attacks. Well, CNN finally getting a little because they make more money going after Trump. The debate was a farce. I will say this. I had tremendous respect for Jake Tapper before that debate. I have respect for him afterwards, but we've gone down about 3 notches because he turned that into a demolition derby, a food fight, and a reality TV show. Brad, jump in.
And favorite songs and who they dressed up on for Halloween. Look, he let the debate get away from him, maybe with the best of intentions, but it was that kind of food fight. It didn't help. The public isn't well served. There are real issues. The Iran deal is definitely one of them, but not all of them. And we need to pay attention to that
Either way, Rick, we're benefiting. That's us.
We win.
As well we should.
That's what matters.
As the Pope's historic visit to the United States continues to dominate the headlines, more and more Americans are asking, who is this Pope Francis? Well, as always, Newsmax got you covered. Learn more about the Pope and his humble rise to the Vatican in the book, Francis, a Pope for Our Time. Get this special offer right now at newsmax.com/Pope. or by calling 1-800-203-7047. Up next, it's happy time. Bless us all. It's yay or nay. This is the Daily Wrap. It's happy time, people. Welcome back to Daily Wrap. It's time for yay or nay. First up, we all know that Donald Trump wants to make America great again. But does America stand with that sentiment? According to a new survey from Bloomberg Politics, we do. 72% of those surveyed believe America is not as great as it once was. The survey also revealed that Americans are fed up with politics. Really? They believe the wealthy get an unfair advantage. Really? And would prefer an outsider in the Oval Office. You got to be kidding. Yes, that's a good point. Is this the winning formula for Mr. Trump, Unger?
No. I mean, Americans have, it's probably all countries. Everybody has this nostalgic point of view about their country and the world. Let me tell you something. Life has never been as good as it is today. You think America was a wonderful place to live when you died, if you got dysentery or some infection that now
polio.
You take a pill or look, we need to appreciate this country more than we do. It can always be made greater. I'm all for it. But this is a great country, and we'll all be a lot better off if we started to realize that.
Are we? I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, because I can't remember like the 80s because I was a teenager, right? And then the 90s was all grunge. So is this the greatest time? I mean,
every generation thinks that it used to be
right.
so much
It
better.
used to
The
be
good old
better.
days is a reason that people sing about it.
Right.
But I think that Trump has risen the wave of fear and anger as far as it will go. And someone needs to take the baton and say, this is how we're going to make the country even greater. Because I do think that there's a dissatisfaction right now, and there are ways that we can improve.
Are you part of the 72%?
Look, I think that life before antibiotics was worse, but I don't know if it's the greatest time we've ever had. But here's what I do know. Supporting Donald Trump is supporting the only person who right now Hillary Clinton beats. Make of that what you will.
And but let me just say quickly, though, it's not about it being the best time we've ever had. It's about whether the country is great. And it is. Look, there's always going to be cycles in time.
We don't disagree. Fundamentally, it's a great country.
Try
and
living
one of the
during
things
the
that
Civil War in this country. And you think Congress is bad now? They used to beat the heck out of each other with canes on the floor of the House of Representatives.
If you go back far enough, you can always find bad stuff.
How far back are you going?
Well, that's the point.
did.
If you go back 100 years, so I get it. It's not a fair comparison. What I think is interesting is the far left and the far right both indulge in nostalgia as opposed to actually making things better in the here and now. That's a bad habit.
I would argue that government ran a lot better in the 90s.
I think that's right.
Right.
I think it was more functional.
Less
polarized, more functional.
Right,
That's true.
Because John Kasich was running the budgetary committee and balanced the budget. Anyway, here is some shocking news. The federal government has spent almost $500,000 on a survey that discovered something we already knew. The federal government is spending about $438,000 in your taxpayer money for a group of psychology students at Kalamazoo, that's in Michigan College, to find out essentially whether or not getting drunk and sleeping around will increase someone's chances of getting HIV. Researchers say they want to expand their testing to see how different behaviors impact groups outside of their normal scope. Can I just save the taxpayers some money and tell you that the answer is yes? When one gets overserved, one makes bad decisions. Any comment on that, Heather Hansen?
I absolutely agree, and that is why it is not worth what did you say? $480,000.
$438,000.
I mean, that's a big problem. This is why people hate politics, because that is a huge issue.
Yeah.
Right. Direct relationship between this and the first issue we did. You want to know why 72% of people feel they're gotten over on by the government? Because we pay to find out if you get wasted, are you more likely to get an STD?
But what we really,
I mean,
but what we
it's
really pay
unbelievable.
for What we really paid for was some member of Congress wanted to do this for some university in his or her
question.
district.
This one's got more pork than a prime pig.
Well said. Finally, Halloween may be 5 weeks away, but it's never too early to get started on your costume selection. Move over, Caitlyn Jenner, and make way for the sexy Trump. Now only $69.95. Just go to Newsmax. No, we're kidding. Ladies can now dress up as the Donna T. Rump Shaker, Heather's nickname in her sorority. The costume comes with a sexier version of Mr. Trump's favorite Navy suit, red tie outfit, but the wig and the hat will cost you extra. Has this given you guys any ideas for Halloween, Rick?
No.
Wow. Heather?
No, me either.
I know what I'm not going as.
Good answer. All right. Yes, well, that's all for tonight. What more can we really say? I'm Joe Concha on behalf of our great panel, our old school panel, as it were. Going back to 8 months of the show's been on the air. Good to see you again. Thank you for joining us tonight. The Steve Malzberg Show. That's next.